Hello, my friends. This is Dick Hellman again of CPAC, the Christian Lobby for Israel on Capitol Hill here in Washington, D.C., and Merkel, our Middle East Research Center, that through studies and other ways and research supports CPAC in its pace-setting, unique legislative efforts to defend Israel and to support U.S. national security in the most important ways. This is a particularly meaningful day in a most crucial and critical week for America. I just returned from Capitol Hill less than an hour ago, in which I heard the most stark and critical appraisal of U.S. foreign policy today. Now, it hurts and troubles me to have to be this critical. But I have to tell you that the kindest thing I heard about U.S. foreign policy, particularly in the Middle East today, was that it was delusional. Someone else, to be more accurate, as a national security expert, said, no, this is national security fraud. So this also, to put this in context, is the week when we heard the President of the United States say, among other things, that it was time to end America's permanent state of war. That's almost his exact words. As if it was in his power, almost like an emperor, to decree there will be no more war. Now that is somewhere between delusion and fraud. And this is particularly meaningful in the third point I want to touch upon. The beginning of this week was the International Holocaust Commemoration Day, in which many around the world, and even in the United Nations, remember those awful events more than 70 years ago, when in a Holocaust, 6 million Jews were brutally slain. Many more were orphaned and injured and dispossessed of their land, their home, their property, and all that they held dear, out of a total of more than 20 million who died all in all in World War II. And so, as I have been looking at this confluence of events, I have thought that it is within our power, you and I, to have a real appraisal, if only a brief one, of the real state of the union of the United States of America. And by this, I want to touch upon particularly U.S. national security, because I believe that is the critical function for which we have a president, a commander-in-chief. Of course, he is also the chief executive officer of the United States, sworn by a solemn oath to execute the laws that Congress passes faithfully and to abide by the United States Constitution. I won't touch upon that role today, but I'll speak of his role as Commander-in-Chief because it's vital to the United States and also to Israel and our other allies. Frankly, today it's sad, but despite what the President said about our prestige and our respect in the world being higher than ever before, that's completely false. In fact, our friends no longer really like us because of the way the State Department and the White House has treated them, and I speak not only of Israel, but frankly of Britain and even of Canada. If time permitted, I could tell you chapter and verse how we have not been the best of friends to these staunch allies and friends of ours, and particularly Israel. And our enemies don't respect or fear us. Think about it. The United States, supposedly the one great superpower in the world, is ignored or shunned or disrespected by most nations of the world today. And our enemies do not respect us, and they do not believe that we will counter the efforts that they continually bring against us. Now we think about Iran, where the Secretary of State has just concluded an agreement less than 2 months ago, which by every rational and objective appraisal does nothing to stop Iran's march toward nuclear arms. And as we have said before in these Washington Bites, it does not address at all the fact, which is equally important, that Iran wishes to use those nuclear arms that it's developing as tools of genocide against Israel and even against us and others in the West. That is to say, Iran's leaders, not just those in the past like Ahmadinejad, but those in the present like President Rouhani, freely say they wish to eliminate Israel, and they oppose the great Satan, that is us, the United States of America. And yet our president says he wants to see an end to the permanent state of war. Certainly, everybody longs for peace. The Israelis, the Americans, most sane, rational, and democratic peoples and nations in the world. But it's not within the president's purview by fiat or by a passing reference in a State of the Union message to say there will be no more war or we will no longer be at war. And so the state of war that began with the Ayatollah Khomeini when he overthrew the Shah of Iran persists to this day. And they particularly direct their animus toward us, but also against Israel. And the Arab nations of the world, except for Egypt and Jordan, all are technically in a state of war with Israel. There's no two ways around that. And of course, the PLO, ruling through its Fatah party in Ramallah, on what they in the world call the West Bank, but it's really the heart of biblical Judea and Samaria, part of Israel's birthright, is no less hateful and an enemy of Israel than Hamas that rules the Gaza Strip. So I'm here today to tell you the United States needs to be a world leader, and we need some policies that will be reasonable, that will protect U.S. national security, which will defend our friends and allies like Israel, and which will look out for the human rights of Christians who are being persecuted and slaughtered in Syria, in Egypt, in parts of Africa, and in China and in other places today with little or no outcry from our State Department and our White House. These are big and sweeping issues, my friends. But I just wanted to give you that overview in this Washington Bite, and we'll pursue some of these issues in details in weeks ahead. So I encourage you, during this still the beginning of 2014, go to our website, cpaconline.org, and join or renew your membership in CPAC, and go to merkel.org, mercl.org, and give a generous one-time contribution to Merkel for our pace-setting research and studies that support CPAC, or sign up through a click of the button for a monthly recurring donation, which is tax deductible. Thank you very much. God bless you, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.